Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for spending this time with us today. We are going to have a great show for you today, but before we get started, you know where I'm going. The first thing that I ask all of our listeners, all our watchers to do is to please go ahead and share this program on Facebook Live, or rather on your Facebook page, on your Facebook wall, on your Facebook everything, as well as on Twitter, Tumblr. What is the other thing called? Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, and everywhere that you can, because folks, that is how we're going to get the progressive message across. Today's show is going to be based on a FAIR article, FAIER, fairness in I don't remember what it stands for, but something about fairness in the reporting of the news. Folks, this is a classic example of what happens in our media today, and one of the reasons why the mainstream media sometimes is dangerous in actually having people vote against their own interests. So this is so important that we discuss again. We've touched on this subject in different avenues, in different venues. We're doing it again today. We have different audiences all throughout. So I ask you to please go ahead. If you're just joining us, please go ahead and share this on your page, on your wall. Go ahead and tweet it out. Go ahead and send it on your Tumblr and everywhere, so that we can get maximal penetration on the progressive message going out. A message that's not similar, or that takes what you hear on the mainstream media, either correcting it, or either giving you the correct narrative, or even bringing it to you in the first place. For the folks that have just gotten in here, welcome aboard, Cindy McLean. Welcome aboard, Michael Davis. Welcome aboard, Chase Escamilla. Welcome aboard, Rudnan. Michael Rudnan. Welcome to everybody aboard. We are going to have a great show. And as I said, share. That's what we stand for. Share. Before I get started, I also have to remind you, our first pitch of the day before we get started. This is a progressive show that needs your support. So those of you who are just coming in, or those of you who've been with us before, those of us who like what we've done but haven't made a decision yet, we want to ask you to please go ahead and make that decision and become a subscriber to Politics Done Right. It's a cup of coffee or so. Cup of coffee, a couple of cup of coffees, whatever you want to do. Go ahead and go to patreon.com/politics done right. Again, that is patreon.com/politics done right. Support progressive media, support independent progressive media that's out there making a difference. And what do? We bring progressive politicians that you haven't heard of, progressive politicians that you've heard of. We bring other psychologists and politicians and activists. All of those we bring to the show to bring you things, to bring you points of view that you're not necessarily going to hear on the mainstream media. So please, if you so kindly can, go ahead and support our adventure, support our project, support what we're doing to ensure that the progressives get their airing, and go to patreon.com, patreon.com/politics done right. Okay, we are going to start with the program. Please do remember, this is a call-in show. The call-in number is 646-716-5812. Again, that number is 646-716-5812. I hope to hear from all of you. Again, that number is 646-716-5812. Anybody who hasn't heard the show, anybody who hasn't called in yet, I can tell you, we are amenable to everybody, irrespective of ideology, irrespective of your thoughts, irrespective of everything. We want to give you a voice because this program is yours. The difference between this and others, the bidirectionality, we make sure that it's a bidirectional communication with you. It's usually either in real time with you, or if not in real time, you know, I'm going to answer all those questions that come under Facebook Live, or that you email me at info@politicsdoneright.com. I want to also remind you folks, my dear brethren, please go ahead and like our Facebook page, Politics Done Right with Egberto Willies on Facebook. Please like the page, Politics Done Right with Egberto, so that you can be informed of all that we're doing when we're leaving town, when we're going to be elsewhere. All these things you're going to be informed of. Secondly, please go ahead and follow Egberto Willies on Twitter. Follow Egberto Willies on Twitter. Again, that's where we send out info on our Twitter feed as well. So go ahead and like Politics Done Right with Egberto Willies on Facebook and follow Egberto Willies on Twitter. So what are we going to talk about today? The title of the show today is "This is How the Media Fools You, Making Sure You Don't See Reality." This is how the media fools you, making sure you don't see reality. And it is so important that we understand this, because what happens is we get Donald Trumps. We don't only get Donald Trumps, but we get politicians that shouldn't be elected, but also we get politicians who are elected, good politicians. They were elected as very good politicians. And what has happened thereafter is because of how they are covered, they are forced to change. We can take that to the clinic. We had the clinic with that with Presidente Obama. Obama was a very good progressive. Obama's campaign, I am sure, came from the heart. Obama's campaign was a whole lot of what people wanted. That is why he got over 60-something% of the vote, way over the majority of the country. That's the reason it happened, because people heard it. It didn't matter if they were Republican, Democrats, or otherwise. Yes, you had the diehard Republicans that would have never voted for him, but they liked what they heard. And had he been able to come through with those, I don't want to say promises, but the edicts that he came out with, had he been able to do that, there wouldn't have been a Donald Trump, because the middle class and the poor would have been taken care of. When I say taken care of, I don't want to sound taken care of in a welfare type manner. They would be taken care of because there would be an economy conducive to their success, an economy conducive to their own success. We didn't get that because, again, several reasons. What I've always spoken about is that the president is not the presidency. There is a difference between the president and the presidency, and the presidency has its own gravity. The strength of the president determines how far he can move that presidency. The reality is President Obama moved that presidency quite far. I mean, something as huge as the Affordable Care Act, even in a model that we are not appreciative of, those of us that are on the progressive left that really prefer single payer or at least a public option, it wasn't as good as it could have been, but that was a major step more so than most presidents have been able to attain. So yes, he did quite good things, but again, had he been able to execute his vision and others, and when I say his vision, it's not really Obama's vision, it's a progressive vision. It's not Obama in a bottle. That is what get a lot of people into trouble, idealizing humanity or the human that is going to be the leader. No, the human that is the leader is going to be the composite of all that we've worked for, all that you've worked for, the progressive values you've worked for, the progressive values you've asked for. That is what it's all about. Folks, welcome aboard to, let's see, Trevor Derrick, Michael Davis, welcome aboard. Also, Michael, well, there was another one that I missed. It's scrolling, so I'll catch you guys up in the near term, my dear friends. But again, please go ahead. If you're just joining us, please share it. Okay, let's go ahead and start the show. This is how the media fools you, making sure you don't see reality. And now, the subtitle. This is an important illustration. The danger of a mainstream media outlet controlled by a plutocracy subliminally controlling how Americans think. And that's what we have. And that's what the FAIR article is going to show. The FAIR article is going to show how interpretations of what's going on, not only in the United States, but around the world, can change how things are said. We're going to talk about how the Washington Post talks about the likely president of Mexico and how it relates to Donald Trump and what could be the reasons why they're doing that. Why would a liberal, a progressive rag like Washington Post written out things of this nature? We'll discuss that. But anyhow, let's get started. If you really want to know why Americans continue to vote against their own interests, then a Washington Post article dissected by FAIR is a classic example. The false equivalencies, the omission of information, the choice of willful ignorance over investigative reporting, and the inability to stop their medium from being used as a free propaganda or free propaganda agent or constant with the mainstream media. This has to stop. And it only stops porque ustedes lo van a cambiar. It'll only stop because you are going to change it. And how are you going to do that? Supporting programs, independent programs, the TYTs, the upscale, the upward reports, the politics done right, and all these guys, making sure that these guys are out there revealing. Make sure that these guys are getting an audience, and that's why I ask you guys who are listening right now to please do remember to share this on your Tumblr, on your Twitter, on your Facebook page, on your Facebook wall. Share. Very important, folks. I need you to share. Anyhow, this has to stop. It is for this reason that having a progressive and independent media is essential to maintain our democracy. Essential to maintain our democracy. You know what I want to do? I want to read something that I wrote today, because earlier today on the Coffee Party website, Janine, who is one of our board members, she posted a meme, and that meme really spoke to me because it was about Steve Schmidt. Steve Schmidt is a Republican analyst, a Republican pundit. He, I think, worked for El Señor McCain. I think he was McCain's director or campaign, something big in the McCain campaign. And he wrote a piece. Or not he wrote a piece. He left the Republican Party. But he didn't leave the Republican Party like how a whole lot of people left the Republican Party. A lot of Republican Party left and say, oh, I'm an independent, I'm leaving the party. And they don't say much. They don't talk about what they're going to do or whatever, okay? Now, Steve Smith said the following: the idea that tomorrow will be okay just because yesterday was or last year was is a naive view of the world, which is true. If you are going to sit back there and think, well, you know what? Trump is here now. We may have 4 or 8 years of turmoil, but you know what? This is America. Everything returns to form. It all reverts to form. He's making the point that it's not true. And so when I saw that meme by Janine, I had to go ahead and write something about it because I was always admired. So I said the following: I've always admired this Republican, Steve Smith, though I have vehemently disagreed with him. We have polar opposite views of how much government we must have, but he believes in a civil society and real democracy. He has been one of the most eloquent as he left the Republican Party and not half-stepping as he states he will vote for Democrats. And why is that important? A lot of these people are leaving. And a lot of other Republicans see them leave and they either sneer or they just don't know what to do because they're saying, well, what is Steve Smith doing? I follow him. I like him. That's what a lot of the other Republicans would say. But he's not saying anything. Well, that's not what Steve Smith said. He said, I'm leaving the Republican Party, and for the sake of the country, I am voting Democratic. I am voting Democratic because this country needs to be saved. Now, ironically, we are Democrats for the same reason. It is the best option for the country right now. We differ in that I believe the Democratic Party is not progressive enough. For him, the converse is true. It is too progressive for him. But pragmatism has a dictate, however. He acknowledges that the Republican Party, the GOP, has become a clear and present danger to the country. Progressives, I want to tell you something. To save this country, we must give Republicans and others who are not necessarily in line with us some space to get us out of this spiral. Let's keep the vigorous but civil debates going, but make sure we can coalesce to defeat the fascism, the xenophobia, the reactionary racism, and just lack of decency that is this country now. We can do that. We have to work with our partners ideologically through their ideology or whatever, because at this point in our time, it is so much more than just about us. It is so much more about just a distinct ideology. Right now, it really is about saving the country. And to my Christian friends, specifically, the Trump supporting evangelicals, you will have a lot. You will have much. You will have so much to atone for. And I hope some of you start to see the light and start doing it sooner than later. Because here is a very important fact, my dear friends. specifically to the Trump supporting evangelicals. Ignorance is one thing. And I can accept that. I've spoken to many Trump supporters, and after speaking to them and detailing the fallacies, detailing the false conceptions, detailing all of that, many of them, they didn't say, oh, I no longer want that. Most of them would come and say, I really don't like the guy, just didn't like the alternative. And they'll say, but you know what, coming again, I will have to make amends. And they've said that to me. I've sat down in Starbucks and spoke to many different red Republicans that don't have any intentions of not being anything but Republicans that said, after speaking to this left-wing liberal, not just the liberal, left-wing progressive, said, you know what? I've never thought about it that way, and I will be doing the right thing. And they don't tell me what the right thing is, but they tell me after acknowledging the things that I've said, after sitting down and sometimes even going to a few websites, some of their own, and sitting down and talking about it. And that's what I've told people all the time. This is tedious work. I mean, for those who want to say, you're foolish for voting for Trump, that is not enough. You have to get into that conversation. You have to get there because, these are your people. These are humans. These are minds. And you never know when your mind might be the one that's distorted. You don't know when your mind is going to be the one that's faulty. You don't know when your mind is going to be the one that gets tricked into some ideology, and that can happen to anybody. It can happen to me. It can happen to anybody. So what you do is you make sure and have the empathy necessary to speak to everyone. The empathy necessary to speak to everyone. Not everybody can do it. I can do it for 20, 30, 40, a million people because I have an everlasting degree of empathy that can speak to anyone and that can take all the incoming flack without flinching. Because I know what I'm doing here is the right thing. I know what we need to do is the right thing. So, folks, ignorance is one thing. Willful ignorance can be fatal. And that is what we have to work towards. That is what we have to convince our people, our friends, whatever ideology, where they're at. We have to get them to listen. We have to get them to listen. I know many of you would, they're not going to listen. They can't listen. They're just obsessed. Everybody, from the deepest KKK person, the deepest racist, the deepest misogynist, sexist, ultimately, they can listen. And ultimately, you can plant a seed. It may not grow immediately, but there will be triggers to get it to grow. So that is what I preach here. I don't want anybody to think some sort of a weakling and because I address all these people that I'm soft. The one thing I'm not is soft. I'm steadfast in what I believe. We all should be steadfast in what we believe, but that should never, ever stop us from that civil debate, that civil but forceful debate to go ahead, because it is in our hands. Those of us that are progressive right now are in the right. We are correct. We are correct. It can be proven mathematically. It can be proven scientifically. It can be proven socially. We are right. The other side have to create facts to get their things out. I'm talking about the leadership of the other side, and that is why they are effective, because we have facts. They have created facts, but they have created facts along with the ideological belief of those that follow them. So it is that much harder for us to get through to these people, which means whenever we're talking to folks, we have to be in their domain. We have to personalize in their domain. We have to be seeing things from their point of view so that we know how to communicate to them. What that means a lot of time is doing a hell of a lot more listening, and not doing a whole of a lot more listening, but as you listen, don't be looking for the comeback. Put in yourself in the shoes, and after listening, without just jumping in, thoughtfully stopping, let them see and you reflect, come back with something that isn't diminutive, but something that is enlightening. And that is how we're going to make a difference. A lot of people don't have the patience to do that. But for those of you who do it. Because first of all, I can tell you that it works. And secondly, if we want to keep the country, it has to work. All right. What's in the news today? Oh, Lord. SinglePayerHealthcare.com has this story. Recently, in Nevada, President Trump attempted to blame the premium increases America are seeing due to actions by his administration on the Affordable Care Act. Protect Our Care Executive Director Brad Woodhouse released the following statement in response. Donald Trump has waged a vengeful campaign which has harmed Americans' health insurance from the moment he took office. He has supported every health care repeal bill, attempted to tank open enrollment, and introduce alternative junk plans, and have projected to increase premiums by as much as 20%. An insurance company's announcement their proposed rate increases for next year, they are continuously citing actions by the administration as responsible for the increase. President Trump and congressional Republicans like Dean Heller should be working on common sense, bipartisan solutions to lower Americans' costs rather than lighting the match that starts a fire and then blaming the House for burning it down. Look, this is very important. They are good at this. Donald Trump is very good at this. Republicans are very good at this. They are very good at turning fallacies into reality. Okay? You guys have to go out there with the facts. You can look all over my website and just put Affordable Care Act sabotage or Obamacare sabotage. And we have all the facts and numbers in several blogs that you can express in many different ways. Go to egbertowillies.com and just do a scan on Obamacare sabotage, okay? Or just do a Google search, egbertowillies.com space Obamacare sabotage. I've written a whole lot of blogs that proves, unlike what a few of my conservatives are saying in the chat room, that proves the sabotage is directly responsible for the Obamacare increases. To one of my great listeners here, Michael Cisak placed a link in the into the feed yesterday on yesterday's show with a columnist that wrote an article that said Obamacare is what's causing the increase. This person is a hack, and I'm not saying is a hack just for the sake of saying is a hack. He was a fellow with the Heritage Foundation. We know what the Heritage Foundation is. The Heritage Foundation is an institution, a conservative institution that in order to justify its fallacies, it tries to come out with facts. What they generally are cooked facts to prove their point. They never pass muster. And he also is with an organization that has, there are several organizations trying to figure out who the hell these guys are because they have a nice name and then they put out policy papers. But the policy papers are just to fill the internet with information so that when you scan and say what is causing the decline, the price increases, there will be articles that look legitimate that comes out and says it's Obamacare. I want to go to that again. And Case Escamilla can probably explain some of this to a whole lot of you guys. What's happening on the internet right now is we have Obamacare prices that are going to be going through the roof. Okay, this is important. What I'm going to talk about. This is important. If you're listening, folks, share this because people have to hear this. There are a lot of false companies. There are a lot of quack companies out there, quack think tanks out there that are going to be filling up the internet with articles. They're going to fill the internet up with articles that say Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act is increasing the price of health care. And why are they doing this? They are doing this so that whenever people go to the internet and scan Google and say, what's causing the rise of healthcare, there will be articles that say it is caused by the Affordable Care Act. There are two ways to mitigate that. There are two ways to mitigate the lies. One, all of you that are listening to me here, that are on the internet, that either are on Facebook, Tumblr, or anything else, you write posts that link back to some of what I've just asked you to go to. In other words, if you go to egbertowillies.com, just do Egberto Willies. In Google, go egbertowillies.com space Obamacare sabotage or egbertowillies.com space Affordable Care Act sabotage, and find articles there and put that into your feed. A link to those articles into your Facebook feed. Write a little email to friends and send those links out. Send those links out if you write an article somewhere else. If you're commenting on somebody else's web page, if you go scan somebody else's web page, say, no, here's the truth, and you put our link to that. Because what we've done is not only taken the antiseptic links, but we've tried to interpret some of these links in everyday language for the average person to see. You know, a lot of people don't necessarily want to see all the graphs and all of that. They just want English saying, this is why this is this way. Folks, if you're just joining us, please go ahead and share this program. It is imperative if we're intending to have people hear the right message. Okay, these are two other long ones, but I'm not going to read them completely because I want to get to the blog of the week sooner than later. The U.S. Supreme Court has ruled in a 5-4 decision written by Chief Justice Roberts for the Trump administration and reversed a grant preliminary injunction in the Muslim ban. Okay, what I wrote on Twitter today is that our Supreme Court has just codified prejudice. Our Supreme Court has just codified xenophobia. Our Supreme Court has just codified racism. That's what they've done. That's why they held that position. They held that position away from President Obama. That is his Supreme Court justice that he should have appointed. They held that from him to put somebody like Gorsuch in. And what Gorsuch doing is fulfilling the plan. And here's the plan. The plan is they want as many conservative, right wing, not just conservative. I can deal with conservative judges because conservative judges usually rule okay on most items. It's just in the social issues and some of the corporate issues that we have to be concerned about. But conservative judges are not all bad, okay? Liberal judges are generally always right. But here is, and I'm not saying that because I'm a progressive liberal or I'm a left-wing liberal or anything. It's just that these guys, I mean, they don't follow their heart. They follow the letter of the law. But here is the other thing. These guys understand one thing, and I want you guys to be able to tell this story to all your friends. About why it is so important to judge, why it's so important for us to not only win the House, but to win the Senate in November. Because we cannot afford Donald Trump another Supreme Court justice on the right. We cannot afford that. And here's the reason why. These guys understand that the country is liberalized and the country is becoming more liberal. The problem is that a lot of liberals don't vote. A lot of progressives don't vote, but the country is in fact becoming more progressive. They know that. So what do they have to do to mitigate that? To mitigate that, they have to have an arm of government that can always go ahead. Let's say we get a Democratic president, a liberal president, and let's say we get a Democratic Congress and Senate, all right? And they start passing laws that progressives like. They start to pass a single-payer healthcare system. What can happen then is that we can get all progressives elected. And then we can pass a single-payer healthcare system. And then somebody can say it is causing us harm and we want to go ahead and go to the Supreme Court and declare it unconstitutional on these grounds. Inasmuch as we have a president and a Congress and a Senate that voted for single-payer healthcare system, it can still be undone by 9 people on the Supreme, by 5 people on the Supreme Court. So I want folks to understand the urgency of what we're talking about. The reason that Trump and the Republicans are so steadfast about the judiciary right now, it's not only about the Supreme Court. It is why he's loading up all the lower courts with right-wingers. Is because they understand that they will be losing the majority for the foreseeable future either in 2018, 2020, sometime soon. They are going to permanently lose the majority. And when I say permanently, we're talking a few generations, right? And the reason why is they have so destroyed the Republican Party. Now, what that means is that the only way they can stop progressive values, they can stop progressive programs that we say we want as a country, is to say that anything Congress passes and the president signs is then unconstitutional. What we are running, and folks, I so need you to understand that why you must pressure your people to vote and why it's not only about the House. Everybody talking about, okay, the House. Yes, the House passes laws and the House control the purse string and all that good stuff. But if we don't get the Senate, we further lose the Supreme Court. Right now, we're going to have a lot of 5-4 decisions in the conservative realm. Right? We will. But they need another one, so that it just doesn't, when they're starting to overturn what goes on in Congress, they need a bigger majority so that it just doesn't look like it's 5 people that are running the country, because that in itself is not a democracy. So remember, the goal of Republicans now, because they know they are in a permanent decline, they can control our whole country with 5 justices. That is the goal. The goal is to control our country with 5 justices, and they can do that. If you don't do your job in November, and if you don't get your folks to do your job in November. The second thing, Supreme Court on Monday. Folks, if you're just listening now, please, it's imperative that you share. Share this program on your wall. Share this program on your page. Share this program via Twitter. Share this program in every manner you can, because we need it. We need to have people hear this. I want to ask you a question about what I just mentioned about the Supreme Court. I know probably somebody have mentioned it somewhere. But how often have you heard that from Democrats themselves? That is a calling point for our own Democrats. You want Democrats to vote? Give them the urgency. Even if they're mad at the establishment Democrats because they know the policies are not going to be as progressive as they should be. What can get fire under Democrats is to realize that if we don't win the Senate, if we don't win the House and the Senate, we can have it where 5 people, the 5 conservative Supreme Court justices run the entire country. Okay, the second issue is that the Texas gerrymandering, Texas has some very ugly districts that were gerrymandered very, very badly. And guess who won? Texas won. Only one district was proven to be gerrymandered on racial grounds. Are you kidding me? If you ever see what they've done to Harris County and how they've split it into pieces to make sure they dilute the Latino and the black population. And I'm going to say something that is a bit controversial, however. The truth of the matter is, I don't care that how they want to mix these things, because sometimes there are times that when you draw these districts for, let's say, hoping to get a black person to win or hoping to get a Latino person to win, that district becomes a fixture for that person, and that person no longer is responsive to that district. So, having a black or a Latino representative doesn't always mean you get the policies that you want. And as you can see, I can go back to one particular issue and remind folks that it was the Congressional Black Caucus who supported the Clintons in passing laws that threw a whole lot of black folk in jail because of the same amount of drugs, but different forms, cocaine versus crack. So I want to tell all you folks out there that are always clamoring, you want to draw this district a certain way. It is, if you're going to hold all those people accountable, then it's worthwhile. If you're not going to hold them people accountable, you're just putting in a permanent chair that is there to say, hey, look at what I look like and what I represent. I mean, controversial, yeah, but it's the truth. Anyhow, you know what time it is, folks. Do you know what time it is?
It's time for the weekly blog post.
Okay, this title of the weekly blog post is Media Fraud. I added the media fraud, but the title is really, For WAPO Subsidizing Bus Fare is a Lot Like Giving the Rich $5 trillion. The Washington Post had an interesting article. Here it goes. According to the Washington Post, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, the front runner in Mexico's July 1st election, bears more than a passing political resemblance to U.S. President Donald Trump. Really? Are you kidding me? Indeed, they are practically the same person. In the late 1970s, AMLO, also known as López Obrador, is sometimes was taking on Mexico's state-run oil company Pemex, setting up protest camps outside its offices to force it to pay compensation to indigenous communities and campesinos whose land it had polluted. Does that sound like Donald Trump? Did he ever do anything altruistic like that? Around the same time in 1975, Donald Trump was busy settling a lawsuit with the U.S. Justice Department that accused the company he owned with his father of refusing to rent or negotiate rentals because of race and color, requiring different rental terms and conditions because of race, and misrepresenting to blacks that apartments were not available. So says Fear. So I don't know if that the resemblance. Anyway, AMLO says that, AMLO, again, Obrador, if elected, he will explore the possibility of granting amnesty to those involved in Mexico's bloody drug war in order to bring peace to the country. Trump's Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, directed federal prosecutors to, quote, pursue the most severe penalties possible, including mandatory minimum sentences, in the first step toward a return to the war on drugs of the 1980s and 1990s that resulted in long sentences for many minority defendants and packed U.S. prisons. Are they really similar? One is saying, we're going to think outside the box. Let's go ahead and give amnesty if it means thousands of people's lives are going to be saved. It means we're going to save the coffers of the state. But no, we are lock them up. As mayor of Mexico City, Lopez Obrador subsidized subway fares and gave stipends to senior citizens and single mothers, as President Trump and his allies in Congress doled out close to $5 trillion in tax cuts, almost exclusively for the wealthy, including a corporate tax cut of $1.5 trillion that CEOs say they will keep rather than invest or use to increase workers' wages, while raising taxes on lower earnings by $5.8 billion, taking such measures as eliminating tax deductions or interest on student loans, medical costs, and teachers' out-of-pocket expenses. Thus, the editorial entirely apt and not at all hallucinatory title reads in part, Mexico's could-be president is a lot like Trump. So here you have the Washington Post equating a definite left-wing potential president of Mexico who support social values, who support providing benefits for the middle class and the poor, who supports policies that affect corporations to ensure they don't screw people, the diametrically opposed to Donald Trump, diametrically opposed to the policies he's effected thus far, and the most liberal rag quoted in this country says they're similar. This is the mainstream media. What we just showed you to contrast these two men, the guy that's going to become president of Mexico and Trump, was to inform you of what's really happening. Why are we telling you that? Because as he becomes president and the negotiations between Mexico and Trump goes on, we are not going to give Trump a break to mischaracterize what's happening in Mexico so that he can have a reverberative effect here. But that is what the Washington Post has allowed. All the millions that have read the Washington Post now are going to believe somehow when crazy things are going on in Mexico that after all, they have a crazy like Donald Trump. No, it's not the same. Obrador is a man that says, and now we are only talking about what he says. We have to wait till he gets into office. But he said he's going to be taking care of all that the current president and others, the plutocracy, the Mexican plutocracy, has not done for its people. Okay? The post-Lopez Obrador-Trump analogy is a particularly pernicious and dumb instance of what Tariq Ali calls the extreme center, a dynamic that reduces politics to a contest to see who can best serve the needs of the market. It's not the needs of the people, the needs of the market, and one that had dominated the West since the collapse of the Eastern Bloc. The extreme center involves two political parties funded by the same sources carrying out very similar policies, including neoliberalism, austerity, mass surveillance, and US-led wars. Centrists, extreme or otherwise, treat a departure from these practices as dangerous radicalism. You see? That's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about. The one incredibly shallow sense in which Donald Trump and López Obrador are comparable is that both have taken positions that fall out of the extreme centrist status quo. However, Trump challenges the center from the right, and AMLO, Obrador, does so from the left. In conflating Trump and López Obrador, the Post emphasizes the sole superficial trait they share and skates over the manifold substantive differences between the two. For example, the Post editorial concludes the following. If Mexicans choose Mr. López Obrador, they will be, like the voters who backed Mr. Trump, blowing up the status quo without a reliable sense of what will replace it. The result is likely to be more trouble on both sides of the border. You see how they did that? They are going to try to equate troubles on the other side of the border. Not that there is going to be conflict between the United States and Mexico because Mexico is moving to the left. A left moving Mexico is a danger to the United States because as the left succeeds, it bleeds. And they do not want. Remember, the biggest fear about Bernie Sanders was Americans finally believing that they mattered. So they had to do everything to make him look like a crackpot, socialist, communist, all the other things. They didn't look and say, wait a minute, who are the ones that are pilfering America again? Who are the ones that are on welfare in America again? The corporations and the wealthy? Those are the people on welfare, the corporations and the wealthy. If you add up all the welfare given in America, it doesn't equate to corporate welfare. The defense budget is one of the largest places of corporate welfare. Even the food stamp program, the way it's administered, a lot of welfare goes not to the food stamp recipient. Folks, understand the system, my dear brothers and sisters. Understand how we are taken. It is true that AMLO could mean trouble, but for a rather dissimilar constituency than Trump. López Obrador has voted to reverse Mexican oil policies that led to the $15 billion energy trade deficit with the United States in 2017 and is proposing a sweeping reorientation of the nation's energy policy with an emphasis on independence from the United States. What's so bad about that? There's nothing bad about that. That's what we're trying. When we went and did shale oil and all these other oils, we're trying to be more energy independent. Why do we want green energy? Why did Obama want green energy? Energy independence and sustainability. That's a good thing for that country. They should do it on their own, and we should continue to do it on our own as well. This could slow oil production in Texas and impede deep water drilling in the Gulf of Mexico by international oil giants like ExxonMobil and Chevron. It's about time. While hampering natural gas sales to Mexico that are important source of revenue for American oil and pipeline companies. Trump, by contrast, has been trouble for Yemeni civilians, Puerto Rican hurricane victims, and migrant children, toddlers, and babies. Wow. One person is deciding that they are going to screw up on humanity. The other one decide that they're not going to allow corporations to rip them off. They're not going to allow corporations to be the masters. In other words, it's going to be we the people. And somehow, that's trouble? They're similar? Come on, folks. Understand. Understand that the mainstream media has to put out a narrative out there that is favorable to the plutocracy. You see, what's going to happen is all those people making all those dollars on oil money coming from the commons, remember, that oil that they're digging out of shale in public lands, that oil that they're digging out of shales, even in private land, wasn't put there by those private owners of the land. It wasn't put there by anybody. And instead of all those monies going into the coffers of the United States to make the country a better place, it goes into the private hands of those investors in those oil companies and in the huge, huge salaries that these oil company executives get. That's a pilfer. They're taking money out of the commons and it's going to a few. The mainstream media doesn't explain it that way. The mainstream doesn't tell you why is a person living on a plot of land, the very minority of the country, living on a plot of land, and somehow they find a pool of oil underneath there. Hey, I struck it rich. It's mine. I bought the land and the mineral rights. No, this is the United States of America. This is the United States of America that was constitutionally stolen from the natives, that should be benefiting from all of that. Yes, compensate those who invented the technology, some of which is government grants. But the spoils ought to go into the coffers of the United States of America, because they didn't put that there to deserve the royalties from it. The United States did, because that is the country, and we all belong to the country. It is the commons. But they've taught us, the Heritage Foundation and all these other think tanks have taught us to not think that way. We must think. Somehow these people are doing us a favor by digging. Somehow they're doing us a favor by all of that. Look, folks would have found oil anyway, and folks would have found a way to do something with that oil anyway. Don't let anybody fool you. Continuing with the program. Yet the extreme center refuses to acknowledge even the most elementary distinctions between those who depart from the reigning consensus for the post-criticisms of Trump. The paper is fundamentally committing the same error that Trump did when he equated white supremacists with the anti-racists in Charlottesville last August. Everyone angry about the state of the world is the same. However, numerous and gargantuan the gaps in the political content of your grievance or the social changes they endorse. Nor is the first time the paper has trafficked in these false equivalencies, having run a piece called "This is How Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump Are the Same Person," as well as articles drawing bogus parallels between Trump and Venezuela's Hugo Chavez. A lot of people hate Hugo Chavez. I want to remind folks that Hugo Chavez was the creation of Carlos Andrés Pérez, once president of president of Venezuela. He was the creation of the Venezuelan plutocracy, because any country that is swimming in oil, and when we talk about Venezuela swimming in oil, we mean they may not be producing it in the ways they can right now, but Venezuela is swimming in oil. Their people have no reason whatsoever to not have been a successful country had they not been pilfered by the foreign oil companies from around the world and their own plutocracy who went into deals with these guys, screw the population at large. It goes the same way. It is my land. It is my oil. No, it is not your land. It is not your oil. It all belongs to the common if you were moral. It is only yours if you take it, if you pass laws that make it legal for you to take it. We have to change our ways of thinking. We have to make it where your value is what you produce. We have to make it where, not because somebody finds oil on their land, it is theirs. What have you done? The farmer goes and he tills the land and he creates the crop, or rather, he plants the crops, he tenders the crop. That farmer deserves all the income that he makes from selling the produce that he made. Every year he makes new stuff, he sells it. That company that sits on government land that wait for the oil prices to reach a certain level and then dig it out and suck it out with a straw and then says, okay, my investors are rich. It is mine. It is mine. It isn't mine. It is mine. Can you not see the immorality in that? Worth without deeds? Worth without deeds. That person who produces, I have a software company. All the products in my software company, the software that was created, I created that, the manuals, the advertising, the marketing, the books, everything for the software. Those were creations. Those are profits deserved. I also resell somebody else's hardware that my software drives. I get just a tiny bit of markup on those in order to, justify bringing those things in the country and selling them to those who need it. I understand those kinds of profits. But the idea, the kind of obscene profits that we get, not only from oil companies, and I don't want to just beat up on oil companies because they're just following the law. Of course, the law that they've written, but they're following the law. But it's the same with the stockbroker. He moves around a little bit of papers, and because of the way we design our economy, it means that they should be worth more than that guy who is actually working behind the scene. All those companies that are that have stocks, where the people sit at their pools and make the profits off the labor of the people who work in those companies. How fair is that? And they say, oh, well, they're sacrificing their capital. Well, when that guy is building that bridge, when that guy or that person is cooking the food in that factory, when they're smelting the iron to create steel, it is their bodies that they're risking. What's more important? Humanity or capital? Humanity or capital? We have to get our morality together. Ask yourself, and one of the reasons I talk about this on Politics Done Right, and tell you why we do this here, and not necessarily, you're not going to get this on TV or on mainstream media, is because that's not what they're here to tell you. They're here to tell you that everything, that the way things are organized in this country and in the Western world, it is all perfect because this is the best way for things to execute or to be done. Morality, folks. And there's something I always tell about people. People always say, oh, if there wasn't this type of capitalism that we had in the United States, you wouldn't have all those great skyscrapers in New York, and you wouldn't have all those great skyscrapers in the downtown Houston and the medical center and all those things. And you know what? They're right. They are probably right. What's the sense in having all those great, beautiful monuments and buildings if less than 10% of the entire people in your country can take advantage of it? Why is it good for the rest of the country if that is what you get? But we have been taught that everybody has equal access to success. False. Mathematically speaking, based on the way our economy is run, it's impossible. The titans of commerce decide who will join the fray. I'm an engineer, mechanical engineer by training. University of Texas, graduated mechanical engineer. They chose me to work in corporate America. They decided not to choose others. For the 5 years that I work in corporate America, that is. Then I left there completely frustrated and formed my own stuff. But the point is, don't ever believe the crap about everybody having equal access to success. Some of us are lucky. Some of us passed the muster at that point in time, and we got in. One of the reasons, as I got older, I thought less about self and less about how good self was, as opposed to how lucky self was, in as much as, yes, I work hard and that sort of stuff. But why you think less about self is because you realize that there are a lot of other folks just like you, just as smart, smarter, less smart, who never got these opportunities. And it's by design. They cannot all have the opportunities for the system to work. I mean, when we're reaching full employment, what does the Feds do? They raise interest rate to dampen the economy because we can't go there. The economic system by design is made for winners and forced losers. And yes, you have losers that did it all on their own, but there are mostly forced losers. And they make it look like people are lazy or don't want to work as hard. That is generally not the case. For the person who works hard and makes a little bit of money, while the shareholders at McDonald's make a whole ton, it's not those shareholders that did what created that wealth. It's those workers that we like to look down on. They're the ones that are creating the wealth. The other guys are putting capital. We have to learn to have a different way of thinking, a different paradigm. If we really want to be a moral people, we have to have a different paradigm. To close that article, it goes as follows. Such comparisons function to malign those who advocate reforms to improve the lives of the poor and working class, equating them to with a racist warmonger, Donald Trump, who enriches the extremely wealthy and has bragged about sexually assaulting women. That is almost certainly the point of this bizarre insistence that thesis and antithesis are equivalent. Thesis and antithesis are not equivalent. Folks, the telephone number, I know I went very long. If you guys decide to call in, I would extend the program if necessary, but I needed to get that out, and I needed to get that out, including my narrative, because I think it is so very important for us to not just sit back and just listen, for us to sit back and be a part of the discussion and not be fooled. Not be fooled by the false narratives that we hear out there, because there is so much false fallacies out there. And we've been taught by the Powell Manifesto. Go to egbertowillies.com and look for the Powell Manifesto. We've been so corrupted in what we've thought or what we've learned to think that it's a danger because it makes evil okay. It makes those evangelicals not have a problem supporting a Donald Trump. It makes those evangelicals forget all the values that they preach, all the values that they did when they put down a Bill Clinton. And by the way, I'm no fan of Bill Clinton, folks. Let me just let you know that straight up. I'm not a fan of Bill Clinton, okay? But Bill Clinton wasn't all bad. He's not all good either. And some of the statements he made taught me some things about him. And, you know, like I said, when I'm wrong, I'm wrong. They taught me something about Bill Clinton that I kind of never realized. And that is, I think Bill Clinton is as well has, and not the problem to the Trump extent. But Bill Clinton ain't no saint, and the way he spoke about women this last time in what he did really gave me pause, and it made me take. I'll be honest with you, it made me take a second look at the Monica Lewinsky ordeal completely, because I tell you what, the way he made a statement and he tried to correct it later on. When he said something to the effect that, what did he say? Something to the effect that, this is not working again, so I'm going to have to go bring this up. He said something to the effect that, oh, well, in those days you could do certain things to women and you can't anymore. And it's like, did you really say that? Do you understand what you just said, Mr. Clinton? Did you really understand what you just said? So anyway, let me go to the page and see if there are any things that I need to tackle right away. And you're going to hear a little interference for a second here until I get the other thing repaired and correct. I'll try to mimic. So anyway, let me go to there we go. I got it. Hey, I got it out in time. All right, let's see what you're saying here. Let's see if I start to the bottom or the top. Michael Rednick says Republicans are going to screw the people by taking away their health care. We know that. Mike Cesek says, I posted the link that had data direct from the HHS department to claim those are hacks. No, you didn't post the link from the HHS is interpretive wrong, and that person that I quoted interpreted it completely wrong. It is proven that the acts of Donald Trump is what's going to raise the prices of insurance, and insurance companies who supports Donald Trump in a lot of ways are saying the same thing. One of the reasons they support Donald Trump is that he supports giving them leniency. Oh, they love that. Michael Cesek, liberals don't follow the letter of the law. Yes, they do. I mean, if you take a look at the way the liberal courts read the law and how their statements, it's quite interesting. It's generally on point. Have a great day. Thank you very much, Michael Davis. Let's see. Michael Rednan says, I hope everyone in Colorado, Maryland, New York, and Utah voted today. I'm pretty sure they will vote, and I'm pretty sure we're going to be hearing about the new senator from Utah is going to be Mitt Romney, because I don't think a Democrat is going to win in that unless there is a huge wave, unless they follow Steve Smith. I wish they would, because, man, I love that guy. I'm trying to get him on the show. I'll see if I can get Steve Smith on the show sometime. Let's see. Terry Brawley says Obama tried to compromise with the Republicans to get legislation passed. I agree with you. Look, when you hear me hit Obama, don't think about me hitting Obama personally, okay? And not only I hit Obama, and I also hit progressives ourselves, because I think had we been harder on Obama would have had to drive harder bargains. So, I mean, there's a lot of blame to go around with what occurred in 2009, okay? A lot of blame. And it's not just Obama. It's the presidency. It's a lot of us, myself, given that Obama was the first black president, I was very hesitant to be really, really hard on Obama, because already the racial stuff had started, and I really didn't want to seem like I was piling on, or also being able to be used by those on the right, showing, oh, you see, even this person disagrees with him. So please remember that. Okay, let's see what else is here. We have Mike Cesek. McCain's stuff urged IRS to engage in, in financially. I'm not going to get there. Don't try to disparage McCain. Look, McCain, I have a lot of problems with McCain, but the guy's not a bad person at all. Progressives have had a sad week in SCOTUS. You're absolutely right, Mike. We didn't have a sad week, Mike. Progressive didn't have a sad week. America had a terrible week given what the Supreme Court decided. And I think it's going to get a bit worse because I think they're going to side against the unions. I think they're going to side with business. So progressive, there's more happening shortly. So let's see. What else is there? Mike Cisak, Chavez, and family became billionaires. I don't doubt that at all, Cisak. Chavez become a billionaire. Corruption is not relegated to just one group. Okay, at all. But folks, thank you so kindly for being a part of the show today. Please notice that we are a progressive show. We ask that you support this show. Go to patreon.com/politicsdoneright. That's patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Very important for us to stay on air. We do 5 days a week, every day from 3 to 4. On Thursdays, we are on the air on the Pacifica Network, KPFT 90.1 FM Houston. It is so important for us to get your support. We support bringing progressive candidates and all others into our fold. We give them the airing that they need. We provide you with that point of view that we need to have people support, that we need to suggest that people support, the more humane point of view that supports more people. Patreon.com, patreon.com/politicsdoneright. My name is Egberto Willies. You guys have a wonderful, wonderful rest of the day. Again, you know what I'm going to say. I am out.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.